Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Earliest stream I've done in a long while. But I hope everybody's doing well on Friday afternoon. We are so close to the weekend, and I just fancied doing something a little bit earlier today, just on a basis of a new content format that I went over last night. Just fancied doing something a little bit different to see if people preferred me doing this. If you don't, then let me know. If you hate it, let me know. But if you love it, let me know. Whichever, however it makes people feel. Big ups, dude. Big up to you, Wolfgang. Good to see you. Um, but yeah, we are back today. We are going to be discussing something else that I was planning on doing last night, but I fancy just doing it in another sort of shorter stream, bite-sizing everything. And we're going to talk about a bit more of the player side of things. We talked about takeover stuff last night, the Paul Surgeon Ratcliffe story and all of that stuff, all of that jazz. So do make sure to go check out that stream down in the channel section. You might see it on the recommended. I don't know, but it's on the channel from last night, and it's an interesting one. It's an interesting situation that faces us with this whole takeover saga and with Sergeant Ratcliffe's bidding structures and processes and you name it. You name it. It's yeah, it's a strange one, but apparently it's Sergeant Ratcliffe Strikes Back, the new trilogy of the takeover wars. But we're here to discuss some talks of the players, and Harry Maguire is has opened his fat mouth again. He has opened his fat mouth again. What is he talking about this time? The ego stroking. He's stroking that ego, like the evil characters that have their evil cats and like stroking them. That cat there is called Ego, right? And it's Harry Maguire stroking his cat called Ego. So Harry's stroking his fat ego again. Monty Python time, and now for something completely different. Absolutely. But speaking of different, unfortunately, it's not different with Harry Maguire. It's more of the same. He's come out and he's opened his fat mouth again. And we're going to read through some of his comments um, that he has been making in a recent interview. This was done on the 12th of October, as was yesterday. But basically, this I think was an interview done between the Sun, but also this has been captured on the Sky as well, on Sky Media as well. So there's two different sources with some conversations that Harry Maguire's had to the press. And we're going to read through apparently what was said and giving our verdicts on it because it's quite damning. Because I mean, Harry Maguire, the captain, I believed was just a complete an arsehole. Like he cut an arsehole character as the captain. Very egotistical. Oh, I deserve this. I deserve that. I'm this. I'm all that. It's like, no, you're not. You really, really are not. And people laughed at you whilst you were doing it. And he's kind of come out and started to do the same thing again. This time he ain't got no captain's armband to twirl around his fingers. Like the prison wardens that twirl the keys to everyone's lockers, everyone's prison cells, everyone's jail cells. He used to be able to do that with his captain's armband, but he ain't got that anymore. So what is he doing this for? What's he swinging around on his finger? I don't know, but we're gonna have a read through what he's apparently said. So this is two parts of a Sun interview that he had. And so we're going to start with this one here. So Maguire on his mum striking out on Instagram. I still can't get over that. She's more worried for me, but I did reiterate to her that I'm all good and strong mentally, and I can deal with it. You can deal with it. You like to bring a lot of this pressure, this mental pressure on yourself, Harry. Maguire on the abuse that he receives here. It probably affects my family more than myself as they worry how I'm dealing with it. I just tell her, my mum, all the time that I'm good, which is it's fair. It's fair. And do you know what? This kind of has a little bit more relevance to the conversations about the whole mental health aspect, right? And this part of the interview with the Sun is not what I'm looking at and thinking, oh, you egotistical bastard. I'm not looking at the Sun interview talking about Harry Maguire's mum and thinking this. I'm talking about the Sky interview where he starts to stroke his own ego. But this is relevant, I guess, with the topics about the mental health side of things, and that having the family that know whereabouts you are and what sort of expectation you have, what sort of abuse that you get, like understand, like having family and friends and people there that understand what it is that you go through and what it is that you experienced, having that sort of backing there to you, I absolutely find is, it's good to have. Obviously, it's not good if your family start to get targeted. It's not good by any means. But if you're someone who is, front and center to the public eye, the public domain, that having this sort of backing, like, or people that are there, just over your shoulder, that are just constantly there to support you, um, I think it's a smart thing. It's I think on Jez's stream about the mental health or the bullying situation against younger people on the internet, Kenny Ken, who was on the show, uh, made very clear a statement about, you know, if you are going into things like this, even including doing YouTube, because you are open to the elements of the internet, that having people that make these lesser known accounts, or these hidden accounts, the fake accounts that are actually run by your friends and your family, that actually go and see exactly what is going on, and then having intuition in your background life, just to keep your head on your shoulders, because if you don't tell anybody about abuse that you get, right, you don't tell people about the abuse that you get, and you keep it bottled up, but it starts to impact you. That's kind of dangerous. That is pretty dangerous thing to do. Harold Steptoe Maguire is big-headed, but doesn't use it for, on or off the pitch. Simply don't speak to the press is my advice. Nothing club-related or international duty should be his standard answer, in my opinion. Um, I mean, it's not speaking to the press. I mean, if you don't speak to the press, I guess it does sort of it keeps the public interaction about your spoken topics relatively quiet, um, which I think is a reasonable thing to do. Um, just to basically, it keeps people like not talking about you. And I think if Harry Maguire's not talking about things like the way he is in the Sky interview that I'm about to go through, it stops people having the ammunition to speak, as harmful topics about you as a player or an individual, and then reduces the level of abuse that one gets. Just going to make a cuppa. Yeah, no worries. I should be here about the time that you get back from making a cup of tea. I don't know how long it takes to make cups of tea. So I know sometimes it can take a while. Sometimes it takes, a couple of seconds. I mean, depends. Depends how much you fill up your kettle. If you fill it up right to the brim and start it from scratch, it takes absolutely bloody forever. But yeah, we're going to move on to the Sky interview, um, which is where things start to get a little bit. This is where we start to get a bit skeptical here. So yeah, Harry Maguire, speaking to Sky, says the following. I mean, I'm not going to sit here all my life and play once every month, and if it carries on, and I'm sure myself and the club will sit down and have a chat about things. But honestly, at the moment, I'm fully focused on 2 games for England, 2 big games. Then I'm fully focused on fighting and trying to get back my place at MUFC and helping the team climb up the league to where we should be. So this is an interview where he's been asked about his fleeting game time, where the minutes are drying up a little bit, and it's like I can't begin to understand the thinking of Harry Maguire, because he's talking about threatening to leave the club here in January if the minutes don't improve for him. And I'm thinking, but you were made, like, this was made abundantly clear to you in the summer. You were told this in the summer that you're not in the plans, but you were adamant about staying and fighting for your place. Your ambitions were challenged, but you opted to stay to be the bench option, but now you're complaining. It's like, for anyone that's in chat, surely that's the biggest action of contradiction from a player's perspective that you could possibly ever see, like you could possibly ever imagine. Player is unhappy about game time. Transfer windows open. Player has big opportunities to leave to get more minutes. Player says, no, I want to stay. I want to fight for my place. Manager says, are you sure you're not in our plans? Player says, yes, I'm absolutely sure. I'm not in your plans, but I want to be in your plans. Season comes along, transfer window closes. Player goes, oh, this isn't what I wanted. I wanted more minutes. I wanted to be in your plans. Manager says, I told you in the summer, you're not in my plans. Player now says to the media, I'm unhappy about my minutes. What is this? Like this, like Harry Maguire's trying to turn this into some kind of circus? Like, are we all clowns now? Like, in the world of Harry Maguire, it's, I want to have all the minutes, but I don't want to, like, I want to be exempt. I want to be outside of the realms of this whole thing of manager assesses players. If they're good enough, they get time. If they're not, they don't get time. It's like Harry Maguire wants to be exempt from that rule that pretty much every player out there on the planet gets faced with. It's like it's a thing as though he's pretend. It's like he's playing pretend that he's still the captain, and that he's just this undroppable figure, and that is like, well, I know that I'm not good enough compared to other players at this club, but what I'm going to do is, rather than actually prove it with my actions and play out of my skin, instead of doing that, which is very logical, very, common sense. It's common sense to do that. You think you answer, your actions will speak louder than your words, Harry, and that's the way that it goes. That's the way the cookie crumbles in this instance. That, looking at this situation, I'm just thinking, but Harry Maguire, you don't have the captain's armband anymore. You can't speak like this. Even when you did have captaincy, you speaking like this, where you were just playing like crap every other week, and literally were not getting dropped for it. Now the manager that drops you comes in and says to you, but you're not good enough. I don't know why people haven't told you this. Like, Ten Hag says to the media, like, Ten Hag, I don't believe he said to the media on a truthful basis to say, "Oh, Harry Maguire is good enough. He's top quality centre back. He's in our plans. He should be a starter for us. He just needs to get he just needs to get up to speed with training." I just I know factually that most of what Ten Hag says in the media about certain players is just, it's not true. It's just to keep the media off his back, because if Ten Hag tomorrow says, yeah, no, Maguire's crap, he's not good enough, the media will be on his back 24/7, Maybe someone's told him. Maybe some. Look, now this is an interesting theory. Maybe someone's actually told Erik ten Hag about the British media bias, and so he tries to keep the heat off his back with his comments, because he knows that the British media, if he says one negative thing about Harry Maguire, they'll be all over him. They will be all over him because he's the darling child of the English football game. He is. He's the darling child. So maybe that's just a theory. There's no truth. There's no guaranteed truth to it, but maybe there is something that there's more to it than meets the eye. A manager doesn't appear to be backed. It's about money, but blocking his transfer more likely. Well, that's the thing. He did have a payout, contract severance pay that was an issue with selling Maguire to West Ham. The transfer fee was agreed, though people were saying, "Oh, it's to do with the transfer fee. Oh, United didn't agree with anything." It's like, well, no, they did. They did, because the instruction was clear from the manager. Maguire is surplus to requirements, so we should get rid of him. Just a thought, just an idea. Maybe get rid of him. Don't know what anybody else thinks here. Like, manager doesn't like a player. Manager wants to sell the player. Player gets sold at United. It's manager doesn't like the player. Manager wants to sell the player. The board go, well, we would save money if we kept the player. Manager gets overruled. Player stays at the club and continues to stir problems, make problems, create trouble. It continues to be a ongoing problem. Oops, I do not want to be leaving the site. I was trying to click on something else there. But yeah, it's really, really frustrating. But the idea of why Maguire is coming out and saying these things is just absolutely, it's just baffling. It really, really is baffling. Yo, mate, good morning to you and good night to me. Good night, Kudos. Hope you're doing well, mate. Watch some older footage of Fergie press conferences on YouTube. Sir Alex Ferguson ran at the show rather than the other way round. And well, that, to be honest, that was more the way the media was back then. The media has changed since those days. The types of questions that get asked have changed. They've become less pressing, less demanding, less brutal. It's like it's like I guess like Mikel Arteta's press conferences are probably or it's like questions that you get nowadays, right? It's like the big Ange Postecoglou, right, gets his interviews and someone's asking him about FPL. What? FPL? What are you asking a manager an FPL question for? That's valuable time. You could be asking them about ambitions of the squad, like what your targets realistically this season. Like, ask some pressing questions, man. Like, the media's become soft. They don't ask the hard hitting questions because the club will say, if you ask a question that upsets the manager, you will be kicked out and banned from coming to any other press conference. That's just like, that might as well be who the stooges that decide the questions and decide who gets the seats at the press conferences are, right? That you might as well say that's who these people are. It's also true that Ferguson's latter reign, he had way more control of the club till Edward Ward. It was, yeah, Edward Ward replacing Sir Alex Ferguson, but also David Gill. David Gill was there as well. Questions nowadays, I'm going for a cup of tea with Rashford. So, Mikel Arteta, which way did you drive to work this morning, Mikel Arteta? Christ almighty, that question where Mikel Arteta gave that completely wacky answer. Like, what is that? What is that? Like, Sir Alex Ferguson would have sat in a press conference if it wasn't a game against Arsenal. Sir Alex Ferguson would have heard that answer from Mikel Arteta, and Ferguson would go, "That guy's just a fucking idiot." And you can print that. He's a fucking idiot. You can fucking print that. Print that on the front page. Print that on the back page. You might as well do that. It's bloody hilarious. The journos are a joke, mate. They are. They absolutely are. And so you know what? It kind of weaponizes the state of which Harry Maguire is able to talk out of his arse the way he has been to this Sky interview. Fluffy question time. Very, very fluffy. They're club mouthpieces. They are. They absolutely are. It's the clubs, controlling all these different elements in media interactions. And that is the easiest way for clubs to hide from taking accountability. 47 formation. My wife's not in. My wife's not in one. I have to I have to conquer my wife. Why is that? Why are you telling the media you had to conquer your wife? Why would you tell people this? So, Mikel, have you and your team been monitoring Saka's stalls? Any corn in there? Nice consistency. Christ almighty, kudos. Do you know what they might as well be as GP? They might as well be as doctors. They might as well be that. That's probably the nature of the questions that he gets asked at training every morning. What are we gonna do with that boy for Alex Ferguson? Dude, it's some of the stories that you heard from Ferguson as well. It's like the house party story with when the class of '92 went to a house party or something, and Ferguson went and turned up at that house party late at night or something, and half of these guys were hiding in closets and everything and jumping out of upstairs bedroom windows and stuff. It's absolutely hilarious. Ferguson, like, imagine that. Like, some of these players go to a house party nowadays, and if the manager turns up, like, the manager's probably becomes the life of the party or something. Like, I don't know. They don't get involved with players' lives as much now. They don't get involved personally as much. And do you know what? I think that's something that I don't think managers quite do enough nowadays. I think players, yes, they probably want a more sort of like personally secret life. They want a private life. But I think having a manager that is involved with your personal life as well as just your professional life at a training ground, I think is one of those things that you build that stronger relationship with your managers. So personally, I want to see managers getting more involved with players' personal lives as well. Like just know them outside of the game a lot more. Speak to them outside of the game a lot more. And having someone that is quite literally the boss, like Sir Alex Ferguson was. That's why everyone called him the boss. He had that sort of, that strict father figure presence that everyone had all the respect in the world for. Obviously, some, namely Roy Keane, didn't, but Roy Keane's just Roy Keane, isn't he? Giggs and Sharp, yeah. PlayStation Live, oh my God. Mate, Eric Ten Hag, if he decides to sit down with Jadon Sancho and play, do you know what? That would be hilarious if Ten Hag decided to pick up a controller and start playing some FC24, EA FC24, and his first opponent's Jadon Sancho. Can you imagine that? If his first opponent is Jadon Sancho and Ten Hag smashes him, absolutely smashes him on EA FC24. Fear factor is missing. It is. It is. It's people don't really respect managers because the influence that the only influence that a manager has is on a training pitch now. Whereas before, a manager had the influence on the player's personal life as well. Like, he had influence. He didn't have control. Like, oh, I control everything you do outside of the game, but I have influence as to the decisions that you make. I influence your patterns of behavior. I influence this, I influence that. Managers just had more of that impact outside of the game without needing to have this control. But nowadays it's just what happens on the training ground stays on the training ground, and that just goes for conversations with your manager as well. PlayStation Live is the only media Harry has still listened on. Well, speaking of the Harry interview stuff, we'll go through. We'll carry on with the comments that he made. There's quite a few bits that he has stated. So I believe in my ability. I have belief in my ability and what I've done in my career, as every player should. Every player who is on the bench should believe that they should be starting, otherwise they wouldn't be playing at a high level. I am no different. But you're not putting in the work to actually. It's like the actions speak louder than words. You're complaining to the press about it, not doing something about it physically, like putting in a new level in training. Like, you're not doing that. You're not helping your situation, Harry. Listen, it's been tough. I want to play games. I want to feel important to the club. I want to feel important to the rest of the team. At the moment, I haven't been playing anywhere near as much as I'd like. It's the bottom line of it. I've got to make sure that I'm ready to take the opportunities when they come along. Obviously, he hasn't been doing a good enough job at that because he hasn't been starting more games. It's not my decision whether I start next game or not. I'm sure on that. I'm sure in a couple of weeks I'll go back and find out. Listen, if you look back on my last 15 to 20 games, 20 starts for the club and country, I would be happy to sit here and say I'm really happy with my performances. My record under this manager speaks for itself. I haven't started as many games as I'd like, but my win percentage when I've played is ridiculously high. Harry, you're not a stats merchant. The same way as you try to convince people by uploading clips of passes, 5-yard passes, 10-yard, 15-yard, 20-yard passes on your social medias to help your argument. But everybody else tells you otherwise. Okay. I'm off to hospital. I will catch you later. No worries, Wolfgang. I'm not going to be live for much longer, to be honest, but best of luck at the hospital. Hope everything goes well for you, mate. Hope everything's all right. I'm sure it will be. Take care. Yeah, 100%. Wasn't expecting a Spurs Player of the Month and Man of the Match clean, or Manager of the Month clean sweep again. Don't think we deserve it this time, to be honest. I don't really look at Player of the Months and Manager of the Months. I don't really look at that stuff. It's just a whole competition thing that has no real relevance to me. But that's just me. So the last part of this Maguire interview, and then I'll start to wrap things up. And of course, there's times where I can do more, times where I can improve to help the team. But yeah, I'm just wanting to help the team. I'm wanting to help the team get out of this position that we're in at the moment, and hopefully we can do that in the coming weeks. That's all well and good, but you don't then start stroking your own ego by saying, but look at my win percentages. Like, you don't do that. You don't sit there and say, my win percentage is really high. I might have caused most problems for my team, but my win percentage is very high. Look at the win percentage. The win percentage. The win percentage, everybody. No, Harry, we look at what you do across 90 minutes and we've judged that it's not good enough and we need better. That's what we're doing here. That's why we assess you and come to the conclusions that you're not good enough to start more games. That's it. That is it. Player injuries are probably one of the few reasons that you actually get in to that you get into the starting 11. We just want a winning team. We do. We just want a winning team. As simple as that. Harry Maguire is everything wrong with modern footballers. Yeah, he's not the model professional, and I think that's what it is. Is the model professionalism is what's needed in the modern game. I think David Beckham documentary is probably a good documentary to watch as regards to um, how players used to be back in the day and how brutal the game was, and what this game in the modern day is missing. And I think we do need to sort of get a bit of a blast from the past and sort of go back to those sorts of days where football was much more cutthroat. And I think players in this game need those sorts of experiences to really feel themselves out a bit more in the game. Uh, exactly, they think they have arrived. They do. And that's another thing as well about younger players getting big contracts. Too much money for players. Too much money for players. You never saw it about these. It's like Dennis Bergkamp. If he got um, if some of the greats that we know today, right, the likes of your Dennis Bergkamps, Thierry Henry's, Patrick Vieira's, Paul Scholes, Frank Lampard's, Steven Gerrard's, guys, guys like that, the proper legends of the game. If they had the wage inflations that our players of today had, would they have reached the levels that they did? Because they stayed humbled and true to their roots and became with the endeavors to be the very, very best of their class, that they went out there and they played out of their skin every week, and they proved that just how good they are, and that they deserve to be in the record books as some of the greatest players to have ever played the game. But if they were given those monstrous wages at the ages of 18, 20, 22, would they have had the motivation to go and be the very, very best players in the world? I don't think they would have, because money talks. Money talks, and BS walks. But for players nowadays, you see just how much influence money has on a player's progression in their career. Um, of us, do you know if players still get win and goal bonuses on top of their daft salaries? Um, yes, to be honest, they probably do. They probably do, because the contracts that you get nowadays, you get loads and loads of incentives. Loads of incentives. It's like the what was it? I think it was either Marcus Rashford or Mason Mount that got a big contract this summer, and it was a base salary that had near 100K's worth increase on incentives, which is mental. It's absolutely crazy. But I think that's probably a big telling point, that um, there are huge amounts of incentives that do that stick massive amounts of money on top of the already huge wages that people have. Um, and that is players nowadays players have brands, that they rule football with brands, and they are literally brands. That's not about the individual player anymore. It's about the marketing of their brands, and it matters what club they go to, and how well that club can expose that player's brand. That's how football's kind of died now. Doesn't incentivize the rest of the team. It doesn't. It doesn't. And to be honest, I think that incentives should be team-based related. That players will get their bonuses when the team achieves well, and that every single player gets incentives. But it is team-based. It's team performance-based. That you, like an individual player, should not be able to earn 100,000 bonus from doing something that is easier to do than a player that's on a 20k wage needs to do to earn an extra 5,000. Like, that's just not fair. That's just ridiculous. And that's just individualizing incentives. So one player will try harder for their incentives, whereas the next doesn't, because the player with the lesser incentive or the easier to achieve incentive doesn't have to work as hard. It's an easier game for them. So that's the problem that we're faced with at the moment. So hopefully that football in future can sort of undergo a change where it starts to revert things back to type, and that it football starts to put players desires to be the best players in the world first, and that we go back to a system like that, or I hope a club puts that sort of ethic in place, and that players that join that club, you can see them trying to be the best players in the world, because that's just the way that they believe in football, and that's the way the club believes in football. But that's by the by. Whether we get that or not, I think is just a foregone. It's just, wish upon a star kind of situations. But anyway, that wraps up this show for this afternoon. There might be something to come this evening. I will probably try to get something out for this evening as well, so that there is multiple streams of content for you guys to come and interact with. But massively appreciate everybody that has tuned in this afternoon. Good to see the likes of Stephanie Griffith, Wolfgang Division, and Kudos as well. Always a pleasure to have the regulars in chat. Really does brighten up the shows that little bit extra. But yeah, thank you to everybody that has liked the stream. If you're watching on playback, do be sure to hit the like there as well. And if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe. We are on the road to I say 200, but 200 is probably going to take us a while. But if we can get to 120 subscribers in the very near future, then that would be fantastic. And big ups to everybody that does subscribe and does like. Real MVPs of the channel. And thank you very much to everybody that has watched. And we'll be seeing you again, probably, most likely, later on tonight. So thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you on the next one. Ciao for now.